Hey y'all, it's Gabby Beckford, Gen Z travel influencer, opportunity expert, and host of the Young Travelers podcast. Each week, I share stories of 20-something adventurers that have opted out of the status quo, live life for the plot, and will inspire you to travel while you're young too. If you've been following along these episodes, you know I've been talking about how to actually make solo travel happen in your 20s. In the past couple of episodes, we talked about one of the main 3 barriers to solo travel, which is confidence. Today, we're switching it up and we're moving on to tackling logistics. How do you actually book a flight? How do you plan what activities you're gonna do in a set number of days? Where do you find information on public transport, for example? I'll cover all the logistics information you need to get your solo trip booked and ready to go. So let's tap into that combo. Let me start by saying this. Everyone has different strategies on how they book a trip. Some start with the flights, some start with the accommodations, some don't book anything until they land, which is completely unhinged, but I have done that before. No one has the correct answer, but these tips will help give you a structure until you find out what best works for you through experience. I personally decide on a trip and initiate the trip process by booking my flights. Flights are usually the most expensive part of the trip as a whole, and I'm like, am I going to go to London or am I going to go to Mexico City? Let's see which flight is cheaper. And I kind of decide where I go based on the flight completely. Like, I'm more likely to be looking for a cheap flight and plan an entire adventure around that than to say I want to go to London really bad in July. Let me just, look for a flight now. I think by being flexible like that, you end up saving the most money and having the most adventure, because whether you choose London or Mexico City, both will be there in the future. So try not to get too caught up on booking a trip right now or booking that place this year. I need to go to the place this year. Everyone wants to go to Japan this year. Everyone wants to go to London this year. Go with the flow. Book them based on what's available. So I use flight planning tools to book my flights like Google Flights or Skyscanner to find the best options for your route. Both of them have like a flexible trip, flexible dates tool to find out which dates are the cheapest to actually travel on or book. Like this Thursday to Sunday may be twice as expensive as Wednesday to Sunday, and help you save money that way. In some cases, especially if you're doing like a multi-city trip, it might be faster and cheaper to book multiple forms of transportation. So a flight and then a train, or a bus and then a ferry. I have no idea. It depends where you're going and what you're doing. But I will say people keep trying to stick to flights, like a big flight there, a little flight there. Especially in Europe, train's probably going to be your most affordable option. If you are in the Caribbean, there might be ferries between the islands that's a lot cheaper than a flight. So look into your options wherever you're going. For flights, I usually recommend paying for seat selection, especially if you have a long haul flight. You do not want to spend 10 hours in a middle seat when you could spend $50 and have a window or an aisle. Do it for your mental sanity. It is worth the investment. And in that vein, I always have seat selection, or I'd say maybe usually, I most always have seat selection because I have status with these airlines. So I would say choose an airline affiliate program. So let's say SkyTeam for Delta or One World for American Airlines. Choose one of them and try to fly all the airlines that are within that airline program so you can build up points and get that status. So I became silver on Star Alliance, which is the airline program that United is in. And now I get automatic checked bag for free every time I fly a Star Alliance airline, which could be like EVA Airlines, United Airlines. It's worth it to have status. So yeah, when it comes to booking your flights, I usually start with book the flight that makes the most sense to you. I always book using my travel credit card so I can make sure that I have that travel insurance built in. I have the Chase Sapphire Reserve in case you want to know, but there are tons of travel credit cards. Just Google them. I book all my flights on them, not only for the points that it gets me, but because of that automatic travel insurance, so that if I book a United flight and my bag gets lost, or I book a Delta flight and I get delayed for 6 hours or overnight in a location, my travel credit card actually will help me get through that. Now that your flight is booked, let's move on to booking the accommodations. So now you're going to land in that destination, but where are you sleeping? Where is your home base? And you want to make sure it's good because that home base is where you lay your head at night. You want it to be safe. That's also where you're going to be recharging. That's going to be your home base. When you don't know what to do, you're going to go back to that hotel, back to that hostel, back to that Airbnb. And so it's important to choose the accommodation that best suits you and the trip that you're trying to have. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Airbnb versus hostel versus hotel considerations. Hostels to start with, which in my 20s was the number one type accommodations I stayed in because of the cost effectiveness, because you can meet the most people. It's great for socializing, the community spaces, the programming. It's a really great option for young travelers. The cons is that sometimes they aren't the cleanest, depends on you as a person, but that wasn't my favorite thing. And in a shared room, there is, likely to be a snorer, likely to be someone on their phone all night. Like, your sleep may not be the best sleep, if I'm honest. Sleeping in like a mixed gender dorm or sleeping with people who don't speak the language as you can be an overwhelming experience. So those are some of the pros and cons with booking hostels. If you do decide to move forward with a hostel, which again is a very popular choice, book through a platform like Hostelworld or booking.com and look at reviews first. Moving on to Airbnbs. These are my favorite. At the end of my 20s, I'm at the place now where I don't necessarily want to have a snorer in the room with me. And I am really used to making friends and finding community no matter where I go. So I don't necessarily feel like I need the accommodations that a hostel provides in terms of programming or bar crawls or whatever. And if I want them, I know that hostels are open to the public. So you don't have to be staying at a hostel usually to be able to enjoy the benefits. So I will usually stay at an Airbnb for these benefits. The privacy. I travel again with like travel equipment or things that I just want to feel super secure with having. So I like the privacy, the security. I like the local neighborhoods. They're usually a bit quieter. I like the variety of stays. I like that I can have an Airbnb with a really unique bathtub. Like, that's really fun. Or I like an Airbnb that has an amazing view of the Eiffel Tower. Cons with Airbnbs are definitely the cleaning fees. We've all heard the drama about Airbnbs in recent years where you end up having to do the trash or do the dishes or change your own sheets or whatever, and you're supposed to be on vacation, which no one likes. And they can now be a little bit expensive and sometimes comparable to a hotel, which is my second favorite option. They clean the room for you. They usually have desk security. We talked about this in an earlier episode, how if you're traveling solo and you're looking to find someone who speaks English, I just need a little bit of help. You can always go to a hotel front desk. That is great. And they often have more amenities than hostels or Airbnbs, like pools, like included breakfast, a concierge that can help you. Cons are, it's kind of expensive. Usually the most expensive option, I'd say. You can get sucked into staying on the property or in the touristy only areas, which is not my favorite way to travel personally as a young traveler. They also usually don't have kitchens or even ways to store food properly. I hate when I stay at a hotel and there's not even a refrigerator. Like, I have leftovers. I'm trying to make this food last. So you have your flights. You know where you're going to lay your head at night. The last logistic that you really need to dive into is like, what are we doing there? We're landing in Barcelona. We're landing in Tokyo. What are we doing? Let's talk through finding the perfect activities, planning the perfect trip for you. First, what I want to say is that if you are going to cities like London, if you're going to Okinawa, if you're going to Costa Rica, I already have pre-made guides, so you can just pop one of those open and steal my itinerary on the low. You can go to packsite.com/shop and find all of the travel guides I've ever made in that location. Again, Costa Rica, London, Barcelona. I'm making one for Jordan. I have tons coming out in the works, so check out there first if you're like, thanks for the tips on how to do all this Googling and research, but do you have any that you can give me? Yes, I do. packsite.com/shop. If you are going to a location where I don't have a guide and you want to do the planning yourself, no worries. I got you with these tips too. Places that I look for inspiration on trip activities include TikTok, YouTube, travel blogs, again, packsite.com, shameless plug, or experience companies like Get Your Guide, Expedia, Airbnb, Viator. I get a lot of inspiration for cute little short-term activities to do there, day trips or adventures, hot air balloon rides, cute stuff like that. Other smart way that I like to find the best things to do in a location is look at a group trip company. It might be Intrepid Travel, it might be G Adventures, it might be Kontiki, any of those based on your style. They kind of have pre-made itineraries for you. Did you know that? That if you go to, let's say, Kontiki, and you're like, I really want to party in Paris, what things should I do? You can look at the itinerary that Kontiki would want to sell you and just get ideas from that. Now, you won't have all the things that you would get if you actually booked a trip with one of these companies, like a guide or the discounts they have and all the things like that. But you can start getting ideas to add to your itinerary. That's one of my favorite super hacks. I also love a free walking tour. I live, laugh, love a free walking tour. It can introduce you to the city, help you feel a little bit safer. You can meet your first few friends. Free walking tours and bar crawls are a great way to get introduced to a city if you're a solo traveler. And my last tip for activities is that you don't have to have everything planned all the time. I know it's a solo trip. I know you may be taking PTO. I know it's this big adventure and you want to soak up every second of it. But I promise burning yourself out by trying to fill every single second with an activity or an adventure is not the way. Sustainable travel is about balance. Sustainable travel is about having a day, a do-nothing day, a relaxation day, a walk-around day, a let's just go out and let the day discover us day. Honestly, those end up being my favorite, honestly. I decide New York City, for example, I want to go out, walk around, sit in the park, walk up to someone and be like, wait, what are you guys in line for? And just let the day take me where it wants to take me in that city. And I always end up in the most exciting, beautiful places. And why not? I got a few quick bonus tips. We talked about booking your flight, tips and tricks for that. We talked about accommodations, how to decide between Airbnb, hostel, hotel, staying with a friend, a homestay, things like that. And we talked about activities, how to decide on the actual bits and bobs of your trip that fill up and make your adventures. And let's finish it off with some transportation tips because that's a biggie. Public transport is my favorite whenever I'm traveling. It's usually the most affordable. It can take you around the city. I love hopping onto those double-decker red buses in London because I'm like, number one, am I getting where I need to go? Yes. Is this a free tour of the city? Yes, and it's so cool. So I love public transportation. Google Maps is usually what I use to navigate public transport. Again, download the maps.me app and you can download the maps of that city before you go, just in case your internet goes in and out. Download Google Translate to help you. They actually have camera features in Google Translate that you can hold up to a sign or a menu and translate live in your phone. I think that's a great hack for getting around. But when in doubt, and especially when it comes to safety, never be afraid to call that Uber. Never be afraid to call that taxi or that Lyft. It's never worth your safety to be like, oh, I'll save half the money and just take the train for 6 hours. No. Call the Uber, call the Lyft, take a little flight, prioritize your safety at all costs, seriously. And some countries don't use Uber or Lyft, by the way. I think a lot of Americans take it for granted that there'll be an Uber accessible option in any country. And to be honest, there really is, but there are other programs, other apps like Cabify, like Bitaxi. In Thailand, for example, there's Uber, but you can call an Uber moped and you can get on the back of a motorcycle, put a helmet on, and those are cost like $1. So, just do your research per usual for every destination and make sure you know the public transport, private transport options. And that's it. Again, don't be afraid to rewind this episode. I know it's a lot of information, but we did cover how to book your flight, when to book your flight. The best way to choose your trip for me is based on the flight. So don't be afraid to book the flight first. Accommodations, why they're important, the best place to lay your head, activities, how to fill up your itinerary or steal mine, which I highly recommend. Again, packslight.com/shop. And transportation options. The thing that keeps you safest is always going to be the best thing. Again, they may hurt your pocket in the moment, but it is an investment in your safety and your experience, and knowing public transportation options and Uber alternatives wherever you go. You got this. Planning a trip can be intimidating, especially when you don't know where to start, but now you do because you're listening to me, Gabby Beckford, and the Young Travelers podcast. With my guidance and some practice and experience, you'll be an expert traveler in no time. Catch you in the next one. Bye. So what do you think? Which part of a solo trip do you feel most comfortable planning now? And what part do you still have questions on? If you liked the episode, give me a follow literally wherever you're listening and drop a review. Again, as always, it helps me a lot. I actually really appreciate it. Take the 5 seconds. I would love you for it. But more importantly, it helps other gonna-be adventurers get inspired to take their first trip too. And if you want to travel but don't know where to start, you know what it is. Go to packslight.com for tons of information and resources to get you from traveling one day to day one. P.S. If you enjoyed this podcast, you should check out Circa. Circa has podcast guides that cover hundreds of destinations to answer trip planning questions for your next big adventure. Learn more by heading to cercatravel.com.